This is Badir McCleary, and welcome to the Reality Talks podcast. On Reality Talks, we speak with working artists and arts professionals on navigating the art world. Through introspective conversation, our guests provide knowledge on the art market, public projects, and the studio and artistic process. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Reality Talks podcast. I have a special guest today, my man Isaac Pelayo. We chilling in his studio. What's good, Isaac? Thanks for having us.
What's going on? Thank you for having me, man.
So we got a lot to talk about, man. First off, congrats on the LA Weekly feature. That was super dope.
Thank you.
Shayna hooked it up, of course. There's been a lot of buzz around the painting. I remember you had a lot of dope events around some things that you did. So before we get started into that, I want to give folks just a background on like how you got started with painting, the history of you and your family painting, and just let folks know how you got started in the game.
Well, I mean, I've always done art. Obviously, you know that. I'm 23 now. I just turned 23 this year, and I'm pretty much I've been drawing since I was 2. Yeah. And it wasn't up until like I was maybe 13, 14 that I really took my art serious. Like, damn, like this is something that I can really potentially do because I had already, won awards already, I started
at 2?
Well, the first art show I ever had been in, I was 10.
What?
It was a show. I sold that piece actually to. It was a drawing that I did.
Nice.
And it was also a contest for the county. And I won out of like 160 kids.
Wow.
So it was like, everybody was like, wow, like you're 10. Like my dad was already an established artist. So
was everybody else like around 10 years old, or were they like?
Yeah, it was anywhere between like I think like 9 and like 12 or something.
Okay.
It was just a bunch of elementary schools and stuff in the county, and then they narrowed it down to a few, and then I won first place. So that was like, oh wow, like this kid can do it. And I had been I had always received awards in school for art and stuff. But once I was like 13, 14, I immediately like one day just jumped and my like technical skill just like spiked. It was weird. It was like an overnight growth spurt.
Was it like a summer thing where you was like just practicing, going crazy in the studio?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I was in school and then, I didn't draw for a little bit. Summer comes and then all of a sudden, I did a couple portraits and they were just like really good compared to anything that I had done, previously. I'm like, wow, like I don't know what the hell happened. I just had an overnight growth spurt. So I'm like, ever since then I had kept building up my drawing skill. And my dad's the only person that does art in my family. I mean, that's as far as I know, he's the only person that has ever been artistically inclined. I mean, the only other person that was somewhat artistically was my mother's mom. She was really creative. She couldn't necessarily draw or paint, but she was very creative. She was always like crafty, making things, and very like intuitive with her hands and just working with her hands. So, I give her some of that credit. But as far as like the drawing stuff, that's, my dad's the only person. And I grew up with my mom all my life. I didn't grow up with my dad. I saw my dad every other weekend. So the only time I was exposed to art was during that time. And during that time, I never really got to draw with my dad. It was always like business. We were always out going to galleries, going to museum shows, going to auctions, meeting with other artists, studio visits. So I never really got to like watch my dad draw. But it was always about art when I was always there.
So just a quick so you got to actually see the business of art early.
Oh, dude, when I was maybe like 7 or 8, I used to go to Magoo's studio. Magoo is, I don't know for anybody who doesn't know, but Magoo is one of the most like prolific Chicano artists back in the day, like I want to say like 70s, 80s. And he came up with like Frank Romero. He's part of Los Four, I believe. So not Chaz Bodequez, but Zach De La Rocha's dad. He was also part of it too. So like Magoo was like super iconic, and I was going to his studio when I was like 7 or 8, watching him sculpt with ceramics and stuff and paint. And I was going to museum shows at that young, so I was pretty exposed to it, and seeing like how auction houses work, going to small auction places with my dad and seeing the sales and just seeing the interaction. So I was pretty exposed to it right away. So by the time I was, 14, like, already a teenager, I already knew how the art game worked.
Yeah.
I just didn't really make a name for myself, because that was the time where I realized, like, okay, I'm going to try to do this.
Yeah.
And, when by the time I reached 17, 18, I already started drawing at the same, I would say close to the same technical level as my dad. My dad's an extremely realistic pencil artist.
Yeah, because he's dope too.
Yeah, like those are his pieces right there.
Yeah.
So, like, you could obviously see how realistic those are. So by the time
like photographs.
Yeah, like really realistic. Some people can't even tell the difference from a photograph and his drawing. So I was already drawing about that skill set by the time I was 17, and people were kind of confusing our work together. So like if we were to show pieces together at the same show, people wouldn't know whose was whose, or they would like think mine was my dad's or vice versa. And as cool as that is, and as like, as grateful and as I am for that, I kind of like thought about it, and I'm like, damn, you know what? Like, people, I don't want to fall into my dad's identity, or not his shadow, but, or like vice versa. But I wanted my own name. I wanted my own lane. I wanted my own voice. So I moved to Vegas right after high school. I moved to Vegas, and I went out there to be with my ex. And while I was there, her parents are very like liberal. They're very like patriotic. They're very like I don't want to say like white folk, but they're just like very like, yo, go to school.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like Hispanic as fuck. Like it's either, if you don't go to school, fuck it, but you need to get a job. So I was like trying to work. I went out there, tried to work. That didn't work out. So I ended up going to school. I enrolled at UNLV. I went there for 2 years, and I was majoring in art. But the only thing is, when I got there, I had to take the prerequisites in order to get to
the art stuff.
To get to the real stuff. And by the time I was reaching the real stuff, I had realized that I was too advanced for anything they had to offer for me.
Wow.
So I just dropped out, because people, I had the first day I was there, the teacher, my drawing professor was like, if you're gonna show off and you're gonna act cocky in my class, you need to be there. And I'm like, you literally asked to see my portfolio.
Yeah.
And this is what it is. Like, right. I don't mean like, I don't want to be here. Like the fuck, like I don't want to be here. Like I have to. Yeah. But fine. Like if you're gonna be like that. So I had a lot of flack the time that I was there. So I dropped out, and when I dropped out, that for one whole year I painted every single day.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily a new painting a day, but I painted every single fucking day for a whole year. So by the time, that year ended, I decided, like, I'm a painter now.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm going to do. I rarely even draw anymore. If I have to, I will, if it's for commission stuff, or, if I'm trying to put in, small work in a show or something. But I stopped drawing, and then I'm a painter now. And then by the end of that year, I decided to paint the Tupac piece that everybody knows, the Third Eye Tupac.
The Third Eye, yep.
So, that was like the painting that like really like, all right, it was kind of like, all right, Isaac woke up. Like Isaac's here.
So, so before we get to the Tupac piece, there was a few pieces back in the graphite series. I remember you had the show across from the gallery.
The broken
beauty show. Like what started that series? I mean, because you had like some iconic faces in that show.
Yeah. So the first piece that I did for that series was a piece called Decay. I did it my senior year of high school.
Wow.
And it was like the very last drawing that I had did before senior year ended. And my teacher from my art class that year, I like looked up to him. I adored him. He'd always give me great advice, and he was a talented artist as well. Like he can paint really realistically.
Yeah.
We never got to do that stuff. It was just drawing that whole year, and I was always trying to like impress him. So I really try to like. My dad has always been very like think outside of the box, be different, do something different. Don't just do portraits.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
Because my dad's known for doing iconic portraits of people and celebrities and public figures, and he was like, what, that's not really a good market, so try to steer away from that. He had to learn the hard way. So I try to really dive down into what it was that I was talking about. And then at that age, I was really going through like a self-conscious like crisis, trying to find who I was. And I realized that like my mom was really self-conscious. A lot of the women around me were self-conscious. So I wanted to like talk about that a little bit. So I found an image of a girl in a magazine that I really liked. I thought it was a really dope picture. I don't recall who the photographer was. I don't even recall finding the photographer's name. I just ripped this image out of a magazine and I drew it. And I was going for something like very how can I put it? Something that was like fragile, I was trying to go for like fragile. And as I was drawing, I was erasing some of the edges, and when I was erasing the edges, I remember it having this sort of like broken look to it. And I'm like, I kind of played with it. I just kept erasing and expanding. I'm like, that's kind of dope. Like, it kind of looks like a piece of ceramic, like a ceramic sculpture that just sort of shattered. And that sort of developed from, a mistake. And then by the time I was done, it looked like this sculpture, this really flesh sculpture that, broke and it sort of shattered into pieces. And I started thinking about, that's kind of how people feel. People feel broken. They feel, fragile. They feel like flawed and all this stuff. But I'm like, it still looked really fucking beautiful. Like,
yes, it did.
like the just the details and it just looking so like, it was like this weird marriage that worked so well and was still so like, wow, I had that factor to me. So then I did a couple of other pieces similar to it, and then they were okay, and I'm like, okay, I need to work on this a little more. So I started working on the pieces that were in the show. I think the next one that I did was a portrait of an African model. Oh man, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but it's spelled like AJAK, Ajac Deck, like it's DEK. She's a really famous African.
Isaac Deck.
Yeah, like.
Well, sorry if we're butchering your name.
Yeah, like Asia something. Yeah. So she's a really famous African supermodel, like really beautiful. And I found this photograph of her. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna draw her. And then that piece was like, oh, okay, like now I'm starting to get the hang of what this is. And I started to develop that body of work, and I was 18 when I did that. That was my first solo show. I was 18 and I told my dad, I'm like, look, I'm gonna put together a body of work and I want to do a show. And that's not really how you're supposed to do it. So but I was really ambitious and I'm like, look, I want to.
You want to do it.
Like I want to do this. Like this, I don't know any other person doing this kind of like pencil work. I got a decent following, I got decent connections, let me do it. So it was dope. I did it, and you were there. It was a cool little turnout. A bunch of supporters came through.
Yeah, it was dope, man.
And a lot of people love that series. A lot of people love those pieces. The series included a portrait I did of Bob Marley.
Yes.
And I did nothing, no color. There's no Rastafarian colors. There was no Jamaican colors. There was no marijuana involved. Nothing like that. It was just a portrait of Bob's face, and it there's this like gaze in his eyes that looked really like intense, and you could tell he's thinking very deeply. And that piece ended up selling to Shepard Fairey. Shepard Fairey bought it last year at a show at that Gaba Gallery had put together.
Oh, word! Shout out Jason.
Yeah, Jason for putting me in that show, and this most recent Art of Remix Part 2, put me in that show, and I ended up selling that piece
show
too.
Jason does good stuff for folks out of LA. Shout out to Jason at Gaba Gallery.
Hella, and also Abby Berman, who's part of Adopt the Arts. She connected those dots, and that was an awesome experience. Shepard came up to me. I was, talking to someone. Shepard comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Isaac," and I was like stunned already. That he's walking up to me. He was like, "I just want to let you know that Amanda and I we bought your piece." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, we bought your piece. And I was like, "What do you mean?" I was so fucking confused. And he was like, "Yeah, we bought it. Like, we're taking it home." I'm like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, dude, it's an amazing piece. We have to take it." And I'm like, he was like, "Amanda's writing a check right now." I'm like, I was so fucking confused. I was like, I don't know. He's like, "I'll be right back. I'm gonna go to my car real quick." And I was like left there. I'm like thinking in my head, I don't understand what's happening. Like, what does he mean he bought the piece? And Abby comes up to me with Jason, and they're like, yeah, so Shepard bought your piece. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, so that was like pretty fucking surreal. And then he comes up to me again, and he's like, you know, I had never really been a fan of pencil work or realism. You know, for anybody who knows Shepard Fairey stuff, it's very graphic. It's very, you know, it's like in the mix of like Roy Lichtenstein and what's her name? She's a very controversial woman. She does these. She's one of his inspirations.
Swoon?
Not Swoon. She does a lot of like lettering above an image that's very like black and white. Oh, what's her name? She just had a show at Mocha, really huge show at Mocha.
Anna Maria Molino, something like that.
It's what is it?
It's not Anna Maria. Oh man, so now you're gonna have us.
Yeah, thinking of that. It's gonna come to me.
Yeah,
It'll come to me. But yeah, his work is very like, you know, different from mine. So he had told me, he was like, you know, there was one artist, I forgot where I wish I remembered, and I wish I can like reverse time to go back to that conversation. But he said that he had went to a show, I think outside the country, and he saw a pencil work that like really blew him away, and it just made him feel different, you know, than other pencil work that he had seen. Wow. So after that, he had kind of gained a respect for pencil work, and he said when he saw my Bob Marley piece, it reminded him of that.
That's
and,
dope.
You know, Shepard Fairey is like a big music fanatic. And,
he is.
And his daughter, you know, adores Bob Marley, and he was like, you know, my entire family loves Bob Marley, and he was like, this is such an amazing portrait. Like, it was much different from most portraits done of Bob, and he was like, you know, we had to get it, and I believe it hangs in his daughter's bedroom. Wow. And it's funny because like his daughter has the Tupac hoodie that I made. She wears it all the time. That's so it's so funny. Yeah, like so that he's, you know, became a really big supporter, and
so that's the standout. That's the standout difference from your father's work, because maybe he would have saw a traditional portrait like a photo, maybe wrote it off as just, that's just a photograph, and kept it moving.
Well, you know what? That's exactly what happened, because my dad had a portrait he did of 50 Cent right next to mine, and Shepard didn't realize that it was a drawing. He thought it was a photograph. I had to tell him, yo, this is my dad's work, and that's a pencil drawing. He was like, that's pencil? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, damn, I thought that was a photograph. I'm like, I know, I know, like, you know, it looks that realistic. And, you know, my stuff, I steered away from trying to go super realistic, because I realized if I'm going to do something really realistic, then why don't I just take a photograph?
Take a photograph,
you know? Yeah. The surrealistic broken part, the contemporary part, makes it a little more different from it just being a photorealistic photo. There's a guy named Diego something. He's like the most realistic pencil artist I've ever seen in my life. Like, he does shit that's so detailed, it's hyper realistic. Yeah. And hyper realistic is that level above photorealism. You know, like Chuck Close was the first like hyper realist. Like,
Chuck Close work is insane.
Yeah, and I have yet to see Chuck Close up close.
Really?
I haven't seen his stuff in person yet.
I've been fortunate enough actually to meet Chuck Close. He came to a fair I worked at during Basel in 2017. Actually a couple fairs, and actually been able to see his work at PAFA, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's as detailed as you say. It looks just like a photograph.
One of my inspirations when I first started like trying to do realistic stuff, I'm like, Chuck Close, he knows. Like, he's fucking incredible.
So how, like, of course we know he had the accident that, paralyzed him, and he had to switch his style. Yeah. How do you think that as a painter increased his level of I guess like lore or iconic status, because he's been able to change from a very hyper realistic painter to still almost a sense hyper realistic, but in a different realism. Form. Yeah, abstract realism. Yeah. Like, how do you think that's affected your career?
You know what? Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who've done that in the past. I mean, you look at Frida Kahlo. Frida, after her accident, her stuff didn't necessarily change in quality, but it changed in subject matter. The story that she was telling, which was much deeper than what she was doing before the accident. And I think, maybe having this sort of abstract feeling to, Chuck's work is a type of work that when you look at it from far away, it looks like this unbelievably detailed photograph that's humongous. And then you get up close and you realize it's these just blocks of these different shapes of color that form this gigantic realistic image. And his work has a similar effect like Rothko. I have seen Rothko up close. And Rothko has the work that you look far away, it just looks like this dot of color. And you get close and it's so humongous that it feels like you're in this room of color. Kind of like James Turrell.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't even gone to James Turrell's installations. No, I haven't yet. But
And you've been in Vegas because there's one at Louis Vuitton.
One is Louis. But the thing is, I was supposed to go for one of my art classes. It was like that was one of the assignments, and I tried to go and I ended up getting caught up in some other shit, so I couldn't go, but it was a really long waiting list.
It is.
But I get what it's supposed to make you feel, because I've seen installations like that similar. These grand spaces that are just very empty and that make you feel like I'm in this empty space, but this space feels so like dramatic. There's this atmosphere is like I'm in a different world right now. It's like I'm not on Earth, and art like that transcends people. And I think when Chuck did that, he transitioned to that. He was transcending people in a different way, and that just whenever you can transcend someone in a different direction than you had already been doing, that just elevates your skill. That just says that you can uplift people in a different lane. And that is always inspiring. I mean, that just makes me feel like. That's one of those things like, okay, then painting realistic or drawing realistic isn't necessarily like how you become successful. You can, look at Basquiat. Like Basquiat is like one of those who you don't have to do realistic stuff at all. I mean, Picasso's career is the epitome of that. By the time he was 14, he was painting like Rembrandt. It took him 4 years to achieve that level of skill, and it took him a lifetime to learn how to paint like a child. And it wasn't until that really skyrocketed his career, because he was transcending people in a different direction. And I think that may be what, eventually what will happen with me, because I realize that with me, I'm such a fan of the Renaissance time period and the Baroque art period that, and the neoclassical period, that my artwork is very like engulfed in that. And I'm trying to figure out how could I incorporate that with some of the contemporary stuff. And not only that, but how can I incorporate different mediums that have never met each other before? Like oil paint, pencil, and spray paint. With a dash of acrylic on corrugated cardboard. So I'm trying to combine all these different worlds now.
Because you got a piece that you were working with, like something like that, right?
I have a piece. I have a few pieces on cardboard. That's kind of like one of the things that people know me now for is the cardboard alongside the third eye thing and alongside the whole Renaissance look. But that was part of trying to speak differently, and that's a new body of work that I'm working on for hopefully a new show. The Vision series, that show was something that I wanted to do to pay homage to people that I feel that haven't really had the respect. Like people paint Tupac and Frida and Picasso and Biggie and Michael Jackson. They paint these people in so many different ways, and they're very pop arty, they're very dramatic, they're very loud and colorful. They're never like, let me just paint them. I didn't want to paint like Pac the rapper. I was painting Tupac and Amaru Shakur, like the person. The person. As a rapper, I'm a fan of Pac since like I got Pac all over my house. I got miniature sculptures. You go in my room, you're gonna see his painting above my wall. And all my hoodies got his face on my shit. Like, you know what I mean? But I was a fan of him as a person. So when I was painting him, I said, you know what, I'm going to paint him, not the rapper. Because I respect him as a person, and people need to understand that these people are saying something deeper than just being like, they're not just famous people. They're not icons. They had a vision, and that's why they were so prolific and so profound.
So now when we segue and talking about Pac back to the third eye piece, is that vision and the way you saw Pac, was that like a guide for the way you painted that piece?
It very much so. Like when I was painting it, I wanted to capture something that showed that he had perspective, and he had a perspective on life and reality that was much more profound than anybody else, because that's how it was. I mean, people like that only have a perspective that's much different from other people. I mean Einstein, Bruce Lee. I mean these people looked at life in a very special way. That's why they were so infamous. Anybody can be famous, but not everybody can be fucking infamous, and not everybody can make the impacts that they have. No one will ever be. There will never be another Tupac or Biggie or Frida or Picasso. Ever. They are so them that they're their own planet now, and people can live on their planet, but no one will ever be that planet.
They have a life when they're not even on this planet,
right? They are immortal.
Really,
for real. They are immortal, and that's incredible. Like that people can do that. To do that, you got to be a fucking like you got to be from the fifth or fourth dimension. You got to be from somewhere else. You know what I mean? So I wanted to really capture that. That's why I painted him, just him. There's no fucking, no gang signs or none of no crazy.
Life,
it's just nothing. A black background and his face. That's it. And I wish I was able to use my own photograph of him, but I had to use a photograph that already existed. And it's funny, I got a lot of flack for that. When Hypebeast posted that series, a lot of people, were like, he's just copying pictures. I'm like, I'm not just copying photographs. I'm changing them, I'm altering them, and I'm adding something that says something about these people. I'm not. If I was to redo a photograph, then I would have just done the photograph. So that was that whole series was one of those things that if you got it, you got it. I can't explain it to you. You should understand. A lot of people don't really understand what the third eye means. If it literally just means enlightenment. It means a different perspective on life. It means that you see with your mind in ways that you feel. It's like you see with how you feel. Like it's like you see with from the other dimension. It's not even a sense that we can claim that we have. It's not part of our sixth sense. It's outer. It's our outer us that we see from. And people had all these wild assumptions and ideas behind what it was, and it was whatever. But that whole piece was it was a great experience painting that and doing that whole series, and it's kind of cool that a lot of people associate me with that whole thing now. Whenever people see a third eye, they're kind of like, oh, this reminds me of you, blah, blah, blah. Because no one was really doing... I didn't invent the third eye, obviously, but I don't think anybody was really doing it kind of like how I was doing it. I've seen a lot of third eye stuff, but it's incorporated with, Buddhist art or, tattoos that are very, dark and, it's like, oh, this is, some demonic shit. And that's not what I was going with at all. It had nothing to do with spirituality or religion or anything. It had to do with humanity and how humanity thinks, the profound level of thinking that people can achieve, and very
got
special.
The dog in the back.
Basquiat, behave.
The dog's Basquiat. That's hilarious.
My dog's name is Basquiat. He's Bas the Bulldog.
Bas the Bulldog.
He's his portrait's right there too. I don't know if y'all noticed, but over there by the fridge.
Oh, word.
Yeah, that was one of the first paintings that I did, actually, 2017. Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, but that series was fun. Yeah.
So sticking on the hip hop and how everything like that, you were able to do what a lot of people was deeming a controversial piece with Westside Gun.
I know where you're going.
You know what I mean? So it was, to me, I thought everything was dope. Even when I commented on it, I was like, wow. First of all, it's a touchy subject.
Yeah. With
a great painting.
Yeah.
I always wondered, because I actually met Westside a couple of years ago down in Scope, Miami.
Okay.
When he came down there, and we talked about how he says, got collecting Gondik draws and a few other people.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was into art like that.
No, he's a collector. He's got he collects me, Hebrew Brantley, he collects the guys from Og, you know, that's all ASAP Rocky's crew, and they're, you know, pretty big contemporary artists now too. And he's got some notable people in his collection.
Yes,
you know,
he does.
He's, you know, he collects Bear Brick. Yeah, he's got a bunch of dope sculptures too, you know.
Word.
Absent, you know, he's got a lot of people under his belt for sure.
Yeah, because he not introduced me, but put me on to knowing about the Compound. Shout out to the Compound.
Yeah.
Because he was telling me about them, because he was like, yo, have you ever heard of them? And like at that time I didn't. And they were doing a whole bunch of dope stuff in the Bronx and everything like that, and it was just like really, really cool to see somebody like really up on what was going on in the art scene, you know, being a rapper, you know, and all
like,
that.
He's really in it. Like, he really does pay attention. And he goes to Basel, he goes to Scope, he goes to Freeze, he goes to these big-ass fairs and shows, and he really does collect. Like, he goes to Complex Con to collect the artwork.
That's dope.
Like, the two times that I you know, met up with him at Complex Con, I didn't see him have any clothes, nothing like that. It was all art. Like,
art. That's
dude
dope.
spent racks on art. Like, he's got two people walking with bags and like baskets of just
That's
art.
the collector you need.
Like, his spot is really like, and it's funny.
All that.
You know, as you probably saw today, he posted, you know, the new stuff that we just dropped today. We just dropped some new stuff today.
Oh, swear, I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
Congrats on that. That's what's up.
For sure. And
go check it out, y'all. On Westside was on his Instagram.
With Instagram, yeah, Westside Gun. We dropped 2 new pieces, portraits of Owen and Jim Hart from the Hart Foundation, WWE. You know, he's also a really big fan of wrestling.
Yeah, he is.
And that's really cool because, you know, I grew up on that shit with my uncles. And so I did a couple of portraits for him that he had asked for a few months ago. They had been sitting in my closet just collecting, and I'm like, damn, bro, like, when are you gonna come pick these up, bro? Like, when are we gonna drop these? He was just like, hold on to those, man. Hold on to them, keep those tucked. And I'm like, nah, dude, come on. I'm like, how you gonna do that? Like the hell?
Timing.
Like, yeah, I'm like, all right. So he finally posted them today. So, you know, shout out to him. And I just was telling him today, you know, I'm like, damn, bro, I was thinking about it. Like, he's officially has the most work from
you.
me.
Yeah.
He has collected the most work. Like, and I was telling him, you know, and I was texting him earlier, right before y'all got here, I was like, yo, you're like my Lorenzo de Medici, dog. I'm like, you literally are my fucking, like, patron. Like,
secret patron,
Like, you're Lorenzo and I'm Da Vinci. Like, you literally, you helped me, like, he helped me, like, elevate my career so much.
Yep.
Like, in every way. If it wasn't for Wes, like, I wouldn't have gotten connected with Hypebeast. If it wasn't for Wes, my stuff wouldn't have been on Complex, Hip Hop DX, fucking Forbes, and Genius, and Hot New Hip Hop, and all these platforms, you know, Mass Appeal, Tidal, like, he's literally put my work is all over the place now because it's all over his shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we got like Cameron wearing you know his hoodie with my artwork on it. Like, shit is crazy. Like he put my shit onto a different, you know, to a whole new audience. You know what I'm saying? He's got this gnarly ass cult following because, you know,
he does.
Westside is like I love, you know, all of Griselda, Conway, and Benny. Like, those motherfuckers are like so hard right now.
They killing it right now.
They're bringing
They
back.
are killing it right now.
Like, as a rapper, like, I'm about 90s rap. I'm about,
most definitely.
you know, straight boom bap and fucking. I grew up on like NWA and Wu-Tang.
Oh yeah, we were talking about all that.
I grew up. That's my shit. Like, if you put on some fucking boom bap, like, I'm gonna start spitting some real
immediately.
shit. And I fuck with every, you know, props to all the rappers nowadays, but like, that's the shit that, like, really, like, speaks to me. That's the shit that makes me, like, get angry and emotional. And, like, I want to feel that when I listen to music. You know, it's all cool to, you know, get drinks and get hyped, but there's a time and place for that. But, like, that shit, that's always. That's forever.
Lyrics,
that's infinite. Yeah. So, you know, him and, you know, the whole Griselda crew, like, just doing that and, like, blowing it up. Like, dude, and, like, dude, Jay-Z's, like, fucking putting him on rock right now. Like, dude, that shit is just gonna, like, it's coming back.
It's coming back,
It's coming back. And I'm so fucking excited, and I'm so, like, it's so dope to be a part of, like, damn, like, I'm watching it, and I'm, like, somewhat a part of it.
Yeah, no, you are.
I told him, I'm like, you know what, dog? I'm like, He knows I do music. He knows I rap. He knows I spit. I'm like, it's all good. Watch. I told him, I was like, I'm going to get you on the track one day. Watch. I'm going to get you to do a feature. He was like, all right. I'm like, watch. It's going to happen. I'm going to get him on a feature. Yeah, it's going to happen. Him, Benny, and Conway, they'll all get on. But
that's what we love. So how did that project come about?
Well, you know, when he hit me up for the first piece and the Chris Benoit joint. That was really good. Yeah. And it was that piece alone had its own controversy with, you know, Chris Benoit having allegations of, you know, the murder and him committing suicide and all this stuff. And that was cool, but I was okay. That wasn't, you know, that bad because whatever. And he hits me up. It's funny. He hits me up like months later. I'm laying in bed and like my phone rings at like 4 a.m. And it's Westside, and he was like, yo, fam, I need another piece. I'm like, all right, yeah, of course. Like, what's up? And he was like, I need a Hitler joint. And I'm like, what? Like, I was like halfway asleep, and I woke up. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, because, you know, I'm aware of his, you know, Hitler Wears Hermes series, and, you know, those mixtapes and stuff, those are hard as fuck. And he was like, yeah, I need a Hitler, but I want a black Hitler. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. I was like, yo, what the fuck? I was like, that shit woke me up, and like I had to like sit down and think about that. I was like, a black Hitler.
Yeah, like what?
I'm like, damn, yo. I'm like, that shit's deep. I'm
it's very deep.
And I was all for it, and then he hits me with, but I want the third eye, and I'm like, oh fuck. And I was like, that's where like my brakes skirted, because I was like, you know, I hit him up and I called him up on the phone. I'm like, look, dude, I get it that he comes to me for that stuff because that's my shit. Like, he found me because Hip Hop DX posted my Tupac joint on their Instagram page. And I think their website. And he saw me through them. And he was like, you know, he hit me up for the Ben Wash for the third eye. It spoke to him. And, you know, when he wanted the Hitler with the third eye, I had to explain to him, like, look, dude, this is kind of like, it's not my brand, but it's sort of my identity. Yeah. And my idea behind it is this enlightenment shit. It's this very positive background, you know. Definitely. I don't want people to associate my shit with like something bad. You know, I'm not trying to get my shit. I fuck with your idea, I get it. And I even try to persuade him to do something different. Like, what if the third eye is a bullet hole instead? And he was like, that's dope, but I want the third eye. And I'm like, motherfucker. I'm like, damn, man. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it anyway. Because I know his vision, and I'm like, you know, I know what he stands for, and I'm like, that shit is deep. I'm like, that's just going to cause some... And you know what? My dad has always been like, Isaac, you know, you need to shock the world. And, you know, and for years I've been asking myself, how the fuck am I going to shock the world? How am I going to... To be an artist... You know, we want to create work, but we want to have a voice. Yeah. And definitely, I know it's a, you know, we have to be careful. We have to tread carefully because we don't want to scream out the wrong message, and we don't want a certain group of people to hear those screams because you know it's very easy for an artist to have their career ruined by the voice of other people who are bigger in the business.
Misinterpretation too. Yeah.
So. When I was shouting, I try to shout in a way that people understood what it meant. For me, my interpretation of this piece, and let me tell you, like, you saw the joint, like, it's Hitler's face, but he's dark. Like, his complexion is dark. I modeled his complexion after Tupac. Like, I had the Tupac painting side by side as I was working on it to use it as a reference. Because I tried to Photoshop it, but it didn't look natural. It didn't come out. So like I need some real like African skin reference. Like, let me get that shit. So I was modeling his skin tone off of Pac's skin tone. So he's dark. Like I look at him like, dude looks black. But it's like, you know, I didn't give him like a black nose. I didn't give him like thick lips. It's Hitler with just dark skin. It's just with Hitler. The third eye. And, you know, people saw that and they didn't really realize that he was supposed to be black. They thought he was just like it was a dark shade of it. And I'm like, how can you be dumb? Like, I'm like for real? Like, this motherfucker looks black to me. Like, I made him like he looks black. Like, I don't know how you think like he looks like he got a tan. Like, like Hitler's white as fuck. Like he does not have no tan like that. You know what I mean? And it was funny because I got no and I'm gonna say it like this, like I grew up around, you know, the black community is always, my little brother's black. Yeah. You know, my stepdad's black. So I grew up like around just black culture, period.
Of course.
So growing up in my art career so far, like just black people have always just loved my shit.
I'm here. I love your shit. We're here. Like, we doing this shit.
They love my shit.
We love this shit.
When I dropped that, dude, everybody fucking loved it. Like, they were like, I had people messaging me like, dude, that's the deepest shit I've ever seen. And
it was.
Like, yo, like, that shit means something. I have people, you know what's funny? Because Westside got no fucking flack. He got no flack. Yeah. My mom DM'd Wes and was like, yo, Wes, you know, I respect you for supporting my son, but I need you to have his back and speak up on some shit because he's getting the wrath of your project and your vision, and he, you know, no one's backing him up. Yeah, you know, he doesn't have the source backing him up. And, you know, Wes said a little something on the comments and hit me up. He's like, yo, if people are telling you shit, hit them my way. And but because no one was telling him anything. Bro, I had close friends. Wow. People who've bought my music, people who've bought my clothing, people who've come to my shows, who've bought my work, people who've literally collected my work and are coming at me crazy. And I'm like, I had like death threats, motherfuckers saying like anything with the Pelayo name on it is like a fucking racist and Hitler supporter. I'm like, you're a motherfucking dumbass. I'm like, first of all, the chick that took my virginity was Jewish. Let's just put it that way. First and foremost, I'm like, my little brother's black. My mom's ex-husband is Middle Eastern. I'm Mexican as fuck. I'm like, how am I racist? I'm like, I voted against Trump. You know what I mean? Even I didn't want to. Like the mother, like, what are you talking about, my dude? I'm like, you collect my work. Like, you know who I like. Shut the fuck up, dog. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, why? Like, and at first I thought it was a joke. At one person in specific, me and my dad were talking. I'm like, you know what? Maybe because this person collects my work, maybe he's trying to start some shit to like.
To boost. So then,
like, he can
with the controversy.
Like, so maybe he can kind of like be like, yo, like, all right, like that was all just a ploy to like get people talking about your name, dude. I had celebrities I had never met before in my fucking DM. I had celebrities in, you know, looking at my story and going through my page and just tagging me in like this crazy ass shit. And I'm like, yo, like, you've never even met me before. Like,
wow.
I hit up some of my artist homies that came at me crazy, and I was like, yo, like, why are you coming at me like this? Why wouldn't you just call me and ask me, hey, what's up with this? You know? Yeah. Because some of those artists, you know, they have a Jewish background, and I'm like, bro, you, like, you're the homie, dog.
Like, you know me.
Yeah, like you should know, like.
Or if anything, just call.
Yeah, just fucking call me. Like, I called up some people, and they were like, yeah, no, I'm done with you. And I'm like, what? Wow. I'm like that? I'm like, dog, like, you're not gonna even ask what's up with this? Because these are some people who are obviously, like, they have a much bigger name than I do. They are well established, and they could damper my name, you know, by just telling some people in the art world some shit you know, like, there's some galleries that don't even fuck with me now, and it's just like, all right, whatever, dog. Like, if that's how it is, like, cool, like, fuck you, I don't need you. You weren't even paying attention to me anyway. You know what I mean? Like, right, like, if you know, I got this whole group of supporters, I don't fucking need you. There's 7 billion people in the fucking world, and you know, I don't need you. I'm not gonna get every person to support my shit, and that's fine. It's gonna get the support of the people that it needs to be, and I'm okay with that. But I just didn't understand why people, you know, didn't talk to me if they didn't understand the message. And this is the way I interpret it. I looked at it this way, and this is what, you know, the people that did ask me what this, you know, first of all, it wasn't my idea. I had to say that. And I'm like, second, the way I interpret it is, let's take a man who modeled his entire life and career based off hatred and animosity, maliciousness, and, you know, just discrimination. Let's take all of that shit and let's put it on him in the most brutal way possible. This man hated people for being different. So let's put the most different right on him.
Different stuff right on him. Interesting. Interesting.
Third eye. Third eye is about seeing things differently. It's a symbolic way of just saying, this is a different way to see this. You know, maybe if Hitler was black, maybe he would have had a different, complete life.
Wow. And just changing the perspective of the subject of the person.
Hitler was an artist. Hitler was an artist as a kid, and he got kicked out because he was a troubled kid. His parents didn't want him to be in art school. His parents hated him.
Yeah.
He was made fun of. He literally got, like, his art career got smashed to smithereens in his face. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, we're talking about a person who wasn't born evil. We're talking about a person who had different goals in life, and just life treated him differently, and he couldn't handle it. Therefore, the same courtesy that was bestowed upon him, he just gave that back.
He just replicated it to the world.
Right. I don't agree with it, obviously.
Oh, yeah, of course not, yeah.
You know, people, I don't really believe when people say, you know, people are born the way they are. Like, no, hell no. Like, everybody's born the fucking same. Yep. People become the way they become based on their experiences. You know what I'm saying? It takes a person to decide whether they're going to do this or that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, I've met people who are fucking twins, and they're raised the same motherfucking way. One's bad and one isn't.
One isn't,
It's like people are born the same, and
you just go their own routes.
It's just how life treats them, you know, and how they perceive things. And he obviously perceived things much defiantly, you know, and he just caused a lot of turmoil.
And so that leads me to a good question of how, you know, not only that piece, but other pieces like it, is how does the public how can the public separate the art from the artist?
And that's a good you know, question to ask and topic to think about, because I think, you know, a lot of people who already knew me and gave me flack, they should have known the type of artist that I am. And that's what I was afraid of, was like, all right, are you gonna associate that work with who I am as a person? Because I'm an artist. At the end of the day, I'm a servant to the craft, and I provide. I'm a painter. I mean, I was just doing what I was commissioned to do. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not supposed to make people happy. Art is just supposed to make people feel. And motherfuckers felt some shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm
so
like,
you won.
Why you mad? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you mad, bro? Like,
straight up.
And a lot of people, you know, what really did it was hitting up my mom, saying my mom raised a fucking piece of shit. People tagging my dad. And at that point, I was like, you know what? This one person in particular, it's funny, I even came out with a fucking diss track. You know, it's like artists, like a painter coming out with fucking diss tracks and shit. But like, you know, I had to speak on it because I'm like, look, dog, if you're going to come at me crazy, that's different. Like, you talk about the artwork, but if you're going to start talking shit about my mom and my dad, like, bro,
it's when it becomes
shit's about to get
different.
Real as fuck. Like, I don't care who you think you are. I don't care who you think you got in your back. Like, you don't know my family. Like, you don't know my background. You don't know who's in my fucking corner.
And it's like all of that over an art piece.
Yeah.
It's
right.
But it shows, for one, the power, but it's like the power of the paintbrush, because that caused all of this. And that was just you using your God-given talent to present a message. So, like, could you compare that to, you know, like a worker who's just, you know, following the corporate lead? You know, like you have a message and you're trying to present the message as best as possible, giving your talents, and you're being chastised for it.
Yeah, I don't really understand how that, you know, panned out. I thought that was ridiculous because it blew up way out of proportion. Just because of some people were salty, and the people who were salty, you know, had a big enough following and supporters that, you know, people just sort of, all right, they say it's fucking whack, then, you know, it's whack. But I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm just doing my job. Like, it wasn't hurting anybody. I'm not hurting anybody. I didn't say I was no fucking Hitler supporter.
Yeah. As we transition to, you know, another dope piece, but more in the fine art realm, you did a recreation of Da Vinci's Mona Lisa.
Yes, sir.
What made you just want to do that?
Well, like I was saying earlier, growing up as a kid, I've always gravitated to Renaissance art, Baroque art. Being a kid, Da Vinci seemed like the pinnacle. That just seemed like the holy grail, Mecca. That seemed like God to me in the art world. Da Vinci's work just seemed like that's how good you have to be in order to be great.
To make it, yeah.
And I've studied Da Vinci my entire life. I've read so much about. If you look around, I have books on Renaissance art. I've had, extensive amount of research on his life. I fall asleep to documentaries on his life, and I've even said if they even came to a point where they did a biopic of him, I better play a young Da Vinci, like straight up. I got the hair to do it too. Like, you know what I mean? I could pass for an Italian dude. I get it all the time.
Young Da Vinci.
But I got to a point where I'm like, I'm gravitating to that work so much, and if I were to be known, I would love for my work to resemble work from that time. That's the work that speaks to me the most. I never felt like I was from this time.
Yeah.
Never felt like I belonged in this time. I've always felt older. I've always felt like I related to that time period the most, just because art signified something that was much more than just beauty and love. It had so much to say. There was passion involved. There's sexuality involved. There's hatred involved. There's all this stuff involved in the Renaissance. It's being human. And that I think is the most purest form of art, is when you can capture humanity, because I'm not a religious person. I say I'm spiritual, but I mean spiritual in the sense that, like, I believe in a frequency, and the frequency that I have a connection with, like with the earth, and the connection I have with you. Your brain has a frequency. Everybody does. There's, electrons and neurons and protons just bouncing around everywhere. And, we're made of energy, and I feel that energy is a real thing. And there's so much energy embedded in art from that time. I want to have that same effect.
Yeah.
So,
feel that.
I got to a point where I need to study that stuff, so therefore I could, figure out how did they do it, and how can I incorporate that with stuff today, new stuff.
Contemporary side.
Right. Yeah. So how could I combine that? And I'm not going to just be able to, do some shit that looks Renaissance-y. No, I have to become, from that time period. That's why I'm like, you know what? If I want to learn how to paint like Da Vinci, I don't have anybody to teach me how to paint like Da Vinci, because motherfuckers don't paint like Da Vinci. Because either people don't know how to, or they just don't, people just don't paint like Da Vinci. They don't have that kind of power. So, everything that I do is self-taught. Everything. My dad never taught me how to draw. No one ever taught me how to paint. No one ever taught me how to sculpt or nothing. I started tattooing when I was 15. No one taught me how to do that shit either.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, no one taught me how to do anything that I do. So I'm like, what is painting like Da Vinci going to be any different? So I'm like, if I want to learn how to do this shit, I need to become him, and I need to paint his shit. So I went for it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to paint the Mona Lisa, and I'm going to do it as passionately as I possibly can. And my intention was not to recreate it and be like, oh, I recreated the Mona Lisa, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I was trying to do. It was homework. It was literally fucking homework that I gave myself. It was a task. All right, if you want to fucking paint like me, paint this shit.
Paint that,
because if it looks anything close like me, then you're on the right track.
You're going somewhere,
So it's you're doing something. So, that's what I started doing. So I did a bunch of research on it, and I watched a bunch of documentaries beforehand to prepare myself. I started watching a bunch of like 16th century, 15th century style films that took place in that time, to just try to become fall into that mindset like an actor. I act too, so as whenever I'm auditioning for if I do auditions for roles, or if I'm I practice my acting skill at home, different voices and different mindsets. So I'm as an actor, I should be able to fall into a character, and I need to fall into a character of that time. So I was engulfing myself, dude. I literally fucking mean I would play like medieval ambience. Like you would just hear like carriages trotting and like workers just like haystacks slamming. Like, just hear like it just sounds like the city and like a medieval city. Like people chit-chattering, and I'm like, I would just have that playing in the background. I'd have incense, like sage type smelling incense. You know, I would have my windows open, so if it was hot, cold, they didn't have no fucking AC. Like you know, I wanted to feel it. Like whatever the weather is, that's what I got. So I would try. I mean, I would have, you know, I have like my living room, and you could tell like it's got like this kind of like darker vibe. You know, like it's not dark, but it has this like more medieval type vibe, but it's like also like contemporary, it's modern, you know. I have like that's a real human skull, and, you know, those are owl feathers, and like I have like a bunch of gold and jewelry, and you know that those are things that they, you know, had around all the time. You know, I have like rosaries and,
like frankincense and myrrh,
and
shit
just
like
you know, I'm very fascinated with like things like that, things that like, you know, I have a bunch of furs. I have like the cow rug and the fucking mink shit and the goat stuff and the sheep, all that stuff, you know, my fur coat and all this. I just have these things around that seem like things that they would have around, you know, and I'm like, I need to engulf myself in that shit. So that's what I did. And then when I approached it, like I said, I painted it exactly like Da Vinci would have had his students paint it. I mean, I used the same technique. You know, Da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa on wood. Now he used poplar wood. I couldn't find any poplar wood. So I got the next closest thing, that's birch wood. Poplar might be a little thicker. That slab of wood is very thin. It's like, I don't know how, half a centimeter. So it's a really thin piece of wood. And I am not really sure the texture difference between poplar and birch and how it responds to the oil or how it ages over time. But I got that. It's literally, the canvas is off by 2 inches on both sides. The original is 30 by 24 inches. Yeah,
because I seen a real one a couple years ago when I went to the Louvre, and I was like,
lucky.
I was overwhelmed and underwhelmed. Yeah. Like, because like it was like even walking up to it, like I'm passing like the Nike sculpture, I'm passing, you know, Jacques Louis David and all that good shit. Yeah. And then it's like, I didn't care about that yet. I just was on a beeline straight to Mona Lisa first. That was the first thing I wanted to see. Yeah. And it was like this anticipation walking up to it, like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Like, that's the Mona Lisa. And then the crowd of people around it, bro, it's like you literally have to like you're fighting through like you said, if you put on the old ancient, you know, or old ancient Roman thing, like somebody's got to run into the thing, like I've got something for the king, something like that. You gotta do some shit like that, like, you know what I mean? You gotta part through the crowd of everything, and then when you finally get there, it's like, holy shit, it's so fucking small. Yeah, like you expect this shit to be monumental, and it's like.
Yeah, it's like funny because people think like, oh, it's really, really tiny. I'm like, well, it looks really, really tiny because it's sitting in front, like it's got this fucking barrier.
It's about 15 feet away from you.
Yeah, and then you're this huge ass crowd that puts you back another 15 feet, so you're 30 feet away. So of course it's gonna look kind of small. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna really see a lot of the detail. But
I think people are expecting this big, you know,
humongous shit, like some fucking Peter Paul, towering, like towering, shit. Yeah. But so I think that piece of wood is almost the exact same size. The original is 30 by 24, and that piece of wood is 28 by 26. Wow. So it's off by 2 inches on both sides. However, the size of Mona herself is as closely as possible. As I tried. I went hours trying to make sure that shit looked as close as possible to it. Yeah. And you know, all the details, I did the best that I could, and I was painting it like he would have, you know, had his student paint. Like I told you, I painted with very, you know, low lights when the sun was gone, because, you know, they probably painted in candlelight. I would paint with natural light in the you know, morning time. I don't have bright fluorescent lights in here. You could see that I have like fucking Christmas lights, you know, like, and I have lamps. They're not really like bright like that, like a bright lit studio. And my living room, like the walls are like a tan, so like it doesn't illuminate in the natural sunlight. You know, the walls don't become really bright. So, you know, I had this sort of like very like limited feel. I used like a limited palette. limited brushes. I just try to, like, all right, like, what the fuck did they have back in the day? Let me try to paint like that. I mean, so that's what I did, and it, I got her done in a month, and it was, it came out really dope. I mean, I'm pretty happy with how she came out, and I think a lot of people really like the way she came out. I mean, it obviously is nowhere near the real thing. I mean,
she could have fooled me,
bro. I've
seen the real thing.
I've gone through so many JPEGs of like really high res scans of it, and I'm like, the quality, like it's like I've seen it in person, just because I've gone through all these websites that have like different high res scans of it, and I literally like, bro, the original is unreal. It's unreal.
What's like the illest thing you've learned by studying Da Vinci, doing this piece? Like what's the I guess like as a painter, what's something's like, damn, I didn't even know I could even do that?
Well, the blending technique. So he developed a technique. There's a term for it in Italian. I forget the name of it, but it's basically a technique that's supposed to have this smoky effect. And Da Vinci achieved that. See, back in like 1500s, 1400s, most artists painted with egg tempera. Egg tempera is made with egg white, and it's painted very rapidly because it dries really fucking fast. Yeah. The only person that really painted with oil was Van Eyck, and he was the one that put oil painting like on. Da Vinci took on oil painting after some years being an apprentice working for Verrocchio, and being in his studio, he turned to oil painting, and he started developing this technique with painting in really, really thin layers of oil paint, like super thin, like a tiny film, and he would let it dry, build it again, and it would have this like really smoky, like just powder effect. Like it looked so like it had this almost like an airbrush effect. Like airbrush, airbrush has that smoky effect, but like the hard lines that an oil painting can do. So like you combine the two, and that's what he created. So that, I think, has been the illest technique I've learned, and that's what I wanted to learn, because I want my paintings to look like that, you know what I mean? But with my style. So, and it's funny because I applied that to that piece. That piece over there you see is obviously the skull, pretty fucking realistic.
So that's the skull you were talking about from earlier, right? That was sitting on the table.
Yeah, that's the whole setup that sits on my table. And it's funny because I did this piece before the Mona Lisa, and when doing this piece, I realized that I was using his technique before even studying it. Wow. When I was doing the skull, I was painting it in layers, and I was getting these really dope details and like gradient color transitions with this like dope little technique. And I'm like, when I was painting them all, I'm like, yo, I was low-key doing that shit with that painting. I'm like, that's pretty gnarly. Like, I didn't really like even pay attention to that. Like, that shit is crazy. And that's what makes some paintings look so like crazy, is just that technique.
Just look at the detail. I wish y'all could see the detail on the jewelry. Like, it's amazing.
That's my favorite part. Literally, I did all of this. So the funny thing about this piece, I was really random one day. I went to Hollywood. I found a store that does like taxidermy, and they have some human skulls there. And I copped one, and I got this whole little setup, and I set this whole little Vanitas still life on my coffee table. I'm like, dude, I want to paint this shit. This shit would be fucking dope. Yeah. And then I started looking at it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw a spray can in there, because I want it to be like combining old artists with new shit. Something that was looked at as very beautiful and elegant and constructive, combining it with something destructive and something that was people were against when it first came out. So it's these two different worlds together in a still life, in this marriage. And there's just a lot of these dope little elements to it. And I started painting it, and I got halfway through the fucking skull, and my dumbass, I use a spray varnish sometimes to dry like whatever paint is on, and then I can add layers on top so I can work at a rapid pace. And I did that, and for some reason the fucking spray made it look like I sprayed my shit with white spray paint. Like, it covered it up, and I'm like, I think the humidity fucked it up. And I was like, yo, I was so pissed off. I didn't work on it for another like 2 days, and I was just like, dude, I'm like, I can't believe that just fucking happened. So I had to redo the skull, and when I was redoing the skull, I started painting it a little differently using that technique. So like doing all these like little like gradient, tiny little transitions right here, like those are all like using that technique, and yeah, that's why that shit looks so like crazy.
That shit is vicious.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite pieces for sure. And I haven't exhibited this piece anywhere yet. I mean, obviously it's not framed, so I'm gonna try to frame it and we'll see where this one ends up. But yeah, this was dope. And painting the Mona Lisa was, that experience was just, that shit was insane, dude. And people were like, yo, you gonna add the third eye? I'm like, nah.
Not to this.
Yeah,
this is.
I'm like, it's respected the way it is. I'm like, if I do another one, then maybe I'll add a third eye on my own shit. But I gotta paint this. This is this. This
is fire, and y'all can see it on Isaac's Instagram at Isaac Pelayo too, and check it out. It's something to definitely see. Like this shit is. It's totally insane. Like I can't emphasize it on this podcast so just go check it out, follow him. Like what you got coming up, Isaac? Let folks know where they can check out the stuff coming up.
Well, I'm working on a bunch of different stuff, different group shows. Another group show at Galba Gallery coming up, I believe in October or November. Another show coming up for one of my dad's events called El Velorio. It's an annual show. It's the 10th anniversary. It's another show I'll be exhibiting some work in. Possibly Chamaya Gallery in October. I'll have some work in. And hopefully, some other galleries in the works coming up. But you could find all the info and flyers on my Instagram. That's Isaac. That's ISAAC Pelayo PELAYO. It's just my first and last name. I post all my flyers, anything that I'm doing, any releases of any kind or any events. All that stuff is on there. My website is being currently worked on, so that's where I post all my stuff for now.
For sure. So make sure y'all go follow him and check it out. And that's been the episode of Reality Talks. Thanks so much for having us, Isaac. You know what I mean? And we'll check y'all later. Peace.
Thank you.